about Brandon and what you guys have experienced the last several years.
Yeah, so obviously Brandon Landry is the co-founder of Walk-Ons Sports Bistro, and now I have a chance to be his partner with that for the last going on 6 years now. So it's actually a funny story because when Walk-Ons first arrived in New Orleans, which would have been I believe 2011, I remember I would drive by it on the way to the Superdome, for every game day. It was always packed outside. Everybody always seemed like they were having a great time. So I was like, man, I got to go check out Walk-Ons. So I remember walking in, and at the time I was a Jimmy John's franchisee. I just brought Jimmy John's to New Orleans. And so I was interested in, the restaurant industry. And down the road, I'd always kind of dreamed of having my own sports bar concept. And so I walked in for Walk-Ons, and the minute I walked in, I looked around and said, you know what, if I were to build a sports bar, it would look and feel exactly like this. I loved everything about it. I loved the culture. I loved the vibe. Loved the menu, loved the food, loved everything about it. And so it was not too far after that I said, you know what, I'm just going to look Brandon up. I'm just going to cold call him, introduce myself, and ask him if he wants to sit down and just have a conversation about the business and just kind of see where it goes. And so that's actually how we met, was just called him up and said, hey, I love Walk-Ons. Would love to, talk to you about it and see what your long-term vision and goals are. And we sat down and hit it off. And it was at a time when, they were looking to franchise. They were interested in the work that I'd done with Jimmy John's and bringing it here, and kind of my long-term goals and vision with that. And we meshed. And it was pretty amazing because I think we Walk-Ons had 3 units at the time, and now we just, I think, opened up our franchise number 46 and 47 nationwide, which is pretty awesome. But I'll tell you what, Brandon has been a great partner, and a guy who, ironically, was in college at LSU as a walk-on basketball player at the exact same time that I was at Purdue. So we are the exact same age. He was a business major, I was a business major. So there's just so many similarities. We both have such a love of sports, but I think more so than that, a love of being part of a team, being part of something greater than ourselves. And it's been awesome to be partnered with him with Walk-Ons, because I think we're really building something special there.
Drew, if I could ask one follow-up, he said the one thing he admires about you the most is the way you treat people. He said he went to an LSU baseball game with you. It took an hour for you to get to your car, to your seat, and you signed every autograph. You were friendly to every person that came up to you. He said you can't walk on the street without people. But where does that come from? Is that your upbringing? Is that how do you treat with every person that you say?
Well, I think a lot of that's just how I was raised. But I think also, I was such a huge sports fan growing up. I had so many idols in so many different sports. I mean, that's what my brother and I did every waking hour. If we weren't in school, it was playing ball. And so, we idolized a lot of these people. When we had the chance to meet them, I can remember every one of those interactions and just the way that it made me feel as a kid or as a fan. And in many ways, that inspired me in some way to continue on. And so I think I look at that now as, well, now the roles are reversed and I have that opportunity. Every person I meet, every interaction I have, especially with a kid, may be the turning point or the defining moment for them with what they choose to do in life. And it may not be sports related, but if that's something that they can reference in a positive way that makes a difference for them, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, the Saints, as long as you've been here, I've done a pretty good job at preparing for every possible contingency, and the latest with COVID is bringing on a couple special teams guys to isolate away from everybody. And with that, you're not the oldest player on the roster anymore. Happy birthday on Friday, by the way. So thinking about being 42 and still playing this game and playing against Tom Brady, who's a veteran, to use a nice word for that. Have you thought about that at all this week? I know you retweeted the History Channel meme that Tom put out there, but anything special about this matchup moving forward?
Listen, I think Tom and I have a friendship and a mutual respect. We were texting back and forth on Monday, just kind of chuckling at this, this whole scenario, right? Listen, he's 43. I turned 42 on Friday, so that's 85 years and a lot of football experience that's going to be on the field on Sunday. Listen, when Tom Brady signed with the Bucs, and I knew that he was coming to our division, I envisioned this game. So what was that? 9 months ago, 8 months ago, I envisioned this game happening because I knew our aspirations as a team to be in the playoffs and beyond, and I certainly knew what he was bringing to the Bucs and that talented roster. And so I think this is probably where we all envision being at this point in the season.
Hey, Drew, if I had told you back in 2001 when you were 22 years old, come to the league, that you'd still be playing at 42, what would you have said to me?
Oh, listen, there's plenty of things I would have told you, no way. It's crazy. I mean, that wasn't even on my radar. I've said this many times, but when I signed with the San Diego Chargers back in 2001 as a second-round pick, my goal was just at someday to become a starter. If I could just become a starter in the NFL. And when I first became a starter, it was, well, man, love to take my team to the playoffs. Love to make a Pro Bowl. And then once we accomplish those things, it's let's try to win a championship. And we win a championship, and maybe I could play 10 years. Maybe I could play 15 years. And you just kind of keep setting these goals and these benchmarks along the way, but never in my wildest dreams back then as a 22-year-old coming into my first training camp would I've ever thought that I'd be here right now 20 years later.
Johnson?
Drew, I know a lot of stuff goes into it, both with your mental, physical preparation, all that good stuff, but how important is it to be like, to be at this stage of your career playing your 20th season in the NFL, to be like a really competitive person? Like, how important is that to you being where you are right now?
How important is what now?
Just being a competitive person, whether it's like football, ping pong,
Oh yeah, I mean, there's got to be something that drives you, and I've always loved athletics. I've always loved to compete. I've loved the grind. I've loved the preparation. I've loved all that, the process that goes into actually then competing on Sunday. So much of that is part of the fun, and that's what drives you, and to be your absolute best. And that is what the competition is about. It's about the opportunity to compete and find ways to win. So is that a huge part of what drives me? Yes.
I love seeing you recreate that photo from 10 years ago with Balin, and have enjoyed seeing those kids grow up and be around you at the facility and at the Pro Bowl. I know this means a lot to you 20 years in, but does this mean even more to you now that your kids are a little bit more invested? You talk about them being involved in their fantasy groups and loving this game. Does this run this year for them as they get older mean a little bit more to you?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And it's what has made me want to continue to play as well, is because I know that they're old enough to really understand it and get it and be a part of this. And these are memories that they'll have forever. And they're such huge fans of the game too. They're playing flag football. They love coming home and playing Madden and creating their own teams. And they played fantasy football this year. To the point where I think Balin had Alvin Kamara on his team, and the championship game was the Christmas Day game. So AK scored him like 50 points and he won the championship. So if he could have run up and give Alvin a hug, he would have, and told him thanks for helping me win my fantasy league. So I mean he and speaking of that game, he's been wearing me out because he wanted a Justin Jefferson jersey. He wanted me to swap jerseys with Justin Jefferson to give to him for his birthday, which is also on Friday, by the way. So I mean, listen, he was in the suite doing the gritty this last weekend, right? So where do you think he learns all this stuff? He learns that they're so perceptive, and they learn so much from what they see from the guys in the locker room and press conferences and highlight videos and everything. But listen, those are the moments of inspiration for them. And just like I talked about, the interactions that I have a chance to have with people just out and about, um, these are the things that will motivate and inspire them to, be what they want to be in life.
Was it hard after the playoffs, Drew, going home to your kids? What was harder for you and the way some of those playoffs ended, or going home, to the kids because they care so much and they are so invested at this stage?
Yeah, well, listen, there have been some really funny moments with the kids. I think I told you about when we played the Giants back in 2015 at home. It was that crazy game that we won 52-49, but Balin's favorite player at the time was Odell Beckham Jr., and he wanted to wear OBJ's jersey to the game. And my wife told him, no, you're not wearing an opposing player's jersey to the game, even though he's your favorite player and he went to your school. You're not doing that. So after the game, I go up to the family area. I'm giving everybody hugs, and I can't find Balin. And she says he's over in the corner pouting because the Giants lost. I'm like, yeah, but Dad won, so he better be happy. He's sleeping under my roof. But stuff like that. Like I remember coming home after the Houston Texans game, I think back in 14 or 15 at their place, and J.J. Watt had sacked me a few times, and I walked in the door and I'm like, man, I'm so glad to be home. I just get to play with my kids and hang out and just relax. And I come in, the kids give me a hug, and they're like, Dad, sorry you lost. Hey, let's play. And I'm like, all right, great. That's all I want to do is play. They're like, all right, you be you, and we're going to be J.J. Watt. So you stand there, and we're just going to sack you. I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds like a fun. We'll just continue. You have a continuation of what just happened in the game for the last 4 hours. But it's stuff like that just it's kind of refreshing just because the kids are so innocent, and they do have short-term memories. There's definitely been those moments where they've been upset, but man, they click out of it pretty quick, and then it's all about just playing ball and being with Dad.
Definitely. Hey, Drew, I wanted to ask you about how you've seen Sean Payton's leadership and coaching style evolve over the years. Like I assume doing the gritty wouldn't have worked on your 2016 with that veteran group you have with Scott Fujita and Scott Shanley. I mean, did he change with the times as you played under him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game's changed, the game's evolved, and I think he as a coach has evolved. I mean, listen, there are those values and those character traits that always stick with you and are always part of what you are trying to build as the foundation of your team. And so as far as that goes, as far as how we do business and our preparation and the sense of urgency that is created, and his very clear description as to each and every week what it's going to take to win a game and what we need to do in regards to the work during the week to win that game, like that will never change, because that's just ingrained in him, and that's who he is. But I mean, I would say that, listen, each team has its own personality, right? And could I have imagined basically our locker room being turned into a nightclub after every win back in 2006? No, but that's basically what it is. We got the smoke machines and speakers and, guys dancing, having a great time. I mean, that's been some of the evolution and I don't even know when that started or kind of where that came from, but I think it was around the 17 season. It was just, and we do have this era, of players and core leaders that have now been with us for a while and been a part of this run, that have made it that way, and at some point, I think Sean would always say this, any head coach will say this, is, the team takes control of the team. And there's a level of accountability that exists where the head coach doesn't even need to say anything because it's going to be taken care of with the leaders on the team, the captains on the team. At the same time, there's a time to work and there's a time to play and have a good time. And I think this team, as much as any that I've ever been a part of, we know when to work and we know when to have fun.
Marcel?
Hey, Drew. First of all, apparently you were not offended by the History Channel meme, and I'm curious about your take on that. Second, I was wondering if you've noticed the kind of dichotomy between the quarterbacks that are left in the AFC and the NFC, where you have, you and Rodgers and Tom, and then on the other side, all four guys are younger than Jared Goff, I believe. So I wonder what you make of that. I think that says about the maybe current current and future of that position in the NFL?
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. You know, there's obviously me, Tom, and Aaron have played this game for a long time and been around for a while. And then on the flip side, I think you've got so much young talent at the quarterback position around this league that really makes you feel like, and there's going to be a lot of exciting football in the future with these guys leading the charge. And